Hi there, Scott Hamilton, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for your ears. Going to be talking about the new 4K release of the original 1981 Heavy Metal. The short version is, you know the movie, this 4K is one of the best of the year, go get it. That's the short version. I won't go heavily into the movie. It came out in 1981. It's a big part of my upbringing. I was in high school. It was one of those movies that instantly became a midnight movie. Went and see it again and again and again. I had it on VHS. I remember it took years for it to come out. I think it was VHS, maybe DVD. Huge deal. The little movie store in the mall where I pre-ordered it gave you a film cell. Well, not really a cell, but it was the image that's on the poster of the Terrakian on the flying. I forget the beast's name at the moment, but it was really cool. I think I still have that somewhere in storage. And then it came out on Blu-ray, and that was, wow, great soundtrack, good transfer. Really, we couldn't have expected more. And about 4 or 6 months ago, they announced Sony was going to be releasing it on 4K, and my first thought was, ooh, that's a really grainy looking movie. I can't imagine, 4K is going to do much, but they announced it was going to be in this new Steelbook, and it would have Heavy Metal 2000 in there, which is not available on Blu-ray at this moment. And I went, what the heck? And the pre-order was about $5 less than it's going for now. Regular price. It was on sale. I said, what the heck? It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I collect Steelbooks. I might as well have the quintessential version of this movie in my collection, no matter how it looks. And I really didn't think about it again. They started posting of some previews and stuff, and I watched some things on YouTube, and it looked fine. I'm like, okay, it looks like Heavy Metal. And then my 4K came in early. I thought I already did this podcast, by the way. I gotta say, I was blown away by it. From the opening scenes, there are a few transitions in the movie that look like I expected, but they're rare. They're composited optical effects with animated stuff, and that was hard to do back then. It's hard to do now. Hard to do it good. And so those scenes kind of stand out, but they're short, and they really transition from one thing to another. There are very few of them. Overall, this is the best the movie's ever looked. Heavy Metal is a collection of short stories. It's spawned from the magazine you could get, which was an adult anthology of science fiction, fantasy, and horror stories, and wrapped up in this magazine. No, it wasn't about the music. They just named it Heavy Metal, and that kind of became synonymous with the kind of storytelling. It just was kind of heavy and kind of metal, and I don't know how else to describe it. You'd go from a story about Valkyries to something science fiction, and that's what happens in the movie. Ivan Reitman has a new extra on the 4K where he talks about they created the story that kind of ties it all together of this ancient being that's telling these stories to a person. And that's how these different stories of how it weaves its way through history are told. Some stories are better than others. Some play out better. But overall, you look back at this movie and go, wow, it's amazing it ever got made. It's out there. They treated sex and violence, it's just there. In 1981, that just wasn't as common. We had violent movies, and a lot of people were complaining about them. And that was when practical gore was really getting good with Evil Dead movies, and 81, early 80s, very fertile for movies doing things practically because we hadn't jumped to computers yet. So this was like rotoscoped animation, which was an old style of animation. You might have seen Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings or one of his movies. He would basically animate live characters to get human motion a little more correct in animation. They did that to a certain extent in this, and they enlisted all these French animators who all did unique works. The stories all look kind of different. They're all a little different in style, but wow, does this movie look amazing? Yeah, there's still some film grain there, but it looks like a real movie. And the colors are so bright and clear, some scenes just look brand new. The movie is kind of timeless anyway. It revitalizes it. The colors, the HDR for like the green Lochnar, when it glows, it really glows. It's really bright. Some of the lasers, the neon lights, sunrises, those kind of things have specular highlights you expect from a film that really, I don't think it's cranked up. I just think the film has been cleaned up, and they've gone back to the original film. It looks amazing. People are asking about the soundtrack, so I was going to talk about that. This is the first time in my life I've had an actual Atmos soundtrack, ability to hear Atmos in most of its glory. I need 2 more speakers to do a 5.1.4, but I'm doing a 5.1.2. So I'm getting overhead effects bouncing off the ceiling and things. And I got to say, this is the best it's ever sounded. You really want to crank this one up. It opens it up a lot. This new Dolby Atmos mix, people are kind of complaining because it doesn't exactly, it says like Atmos enhanced, meaning they've added some things and changed some things. And they have, but it does make the movie better. It doesn't really sound different to your ears. It just sounds bigger. Things are more directional. When a little robot guy flies from the left to the right around your head and then behind you, that happens, in the audio space where it just kind of went from left to right before. It's a great Atmos mix. Honestly, this is going to be one of the top 4Ks of the year, and I least expected. I really didn't expect it to rival anything else I have in my collection, but I'll pull this out to go, look at this, and heavy metal's never been that movie. You get people to watch it because it's gory and got nudity in it and sex and stuff. And it's a very adult animated thing that just, there hasn't really been anything else like it ever. They even tried to make a sequel, which the biggest problem with the sequel, and I'm about to rewatch it for a podcast. I haven't watched it in years. It tells one story for 90 minutes. That's not what people wanted from a heavy metal thing after getting this movie. And that was better or worse, they didn't have a good enough story to stretch it out to 90 minutes and should have done the anthology thing. Maybe they'll go back to that now. I think this 4K release will revitalize the movie, hopefully. I understand it's hard to get out there. This was a mainstream release. It wasn't a Best Buy exclusive or anything. You could order it from Amazon or Best Buy or any retailer. The only way to get it was with the Steelbook. I imagine they will release a version of it on 4K by itself. You probably won't get Heavy Metal 2000 in it, and you won't get the Steelbook, but you may save some money. I haven't popped in the Blu-ray to look if it's different. I mean, a lot of reviewers do that. I don't. Paramount and a couple other movie companies have stopped putting Blu-rays in their 4Ks, and I'm fine with that. If I had a camper that had a Blu-ray player in it, maybe, but I have digital copies of things. I don't feel I need a 1080p version when I get a 4K version because I have a 4K player and a 4K TV and all that. And, why would I want to watch the lesser version of the movie? So I did not put, but to my eyes, it looks like a different disc. They're not just recycling old Sony discs from the original Heavy Metal Blu-ray. So if you're into that, it does look like the new transfer was put on the Blu-ray, and I think I read a review that says it is. And I will be reviewing Heavy Metal 2000 in the near future. It's one I'm not really looking forward to watching. So, but I do want to, maybe I misjudged it. We'll see. So, like I said, I didn't get into too much specifics. You know Heavy Metal, you've probably seen it. And if you're young and you haven't seen it, well, think of it as a time capsule. It was a midnight movie kind of movie that was made at a time. Some of the best voice acting in there. John Candy's in there. Eugene Levy. It's a lightning bolt of a movie. The first time I rewatched it on Blu-ray, it had been a while. And I was like, well, it is a little dated and it's this and that. But watching it on this 4K, I don't know, I had a blast with it. I just think there's never been a movie like it and there probably never will be. So pick up the 4K if you can. It's definitely worth having in your collection if you're a collector of films and this is one of your favorites. Well, there's absolutely no doubt this is the best it's ever looked and sounded. Long live heavy metal. This is great. Most of the extras have been ported over from the old releases, but this new retrospective thing, it's not very long. But man, they talk to a lot of people who like it and you get their perspective on it and really enjoyed that as well. It was nice to dive back into this, a movie that when it was first announced, I just like, it's a cash grab for Sony to release another Blu-ray or another 4K that they can say, it also plays on PS5. But no, they really did a great job on Heavy Metal. Well deserved. Well done, Sony. Really changed my opinion on like not all these movies coming out on 4K are just thrown up on the 4K. there's a lot of companies doing great work. Arrow and a few others. Criterion is now getting into it. I can't wait to get my first 4K Criterion. I haven't decided what that's going to be. They put out Citizen Kane, and they're supposed to put out The Seventh Seal. Those two were pretty high on my list, but I'm hoping for something a little newer, But anyway, if you have the setup to enjoy 4K and Dolby Atmos with HDR, heavy metal is awesome on 4K with HDR in Dolby Atmos. Spend the money. It's worth it. Scott Hamilton, I'm ROCKFILE. Thanks for checking out my podcast. There's a whole bunch of them. If you subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And there's more to come. I'm going to stick to this Monday, Wednesday, Friday format because I have some other projects coming and I want to make room for them. And this has all been kind of random for the last couple of years. So I'll try and continue to do my regular review podcasts on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'll try to do extra Patreon stuff in between and on weekends, and be on the lookout for some new things coming soon. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.